Good evening to one and all. Once again, welcome to day two, session two. The resource person is Dr. Sunil Nandipati, sir. He is a senior assistant professor from Geetham University, Visakhapatnam. He has done his BTech in civil engineering from Chaitanya Engineering College, Vizag, MTech in construction technology management from NIT Warangal, and PhD in civil engineering, especially in the area of construction technology management from Andhra University, Visakhapatnam. Sir has also done his Master of Science in Real Estate Valuation from Annamalai University, Chidambaram. Dr. Sunil sir has 15 years of research, teaching, and consultancy experience. His areas of research interests are construction management, project management, energy efficiency of buildings, sustainable construction, advanced construction materials, drone technology, embodied and operational energy of affordable housing, building information modeling, and life cycle assessment. Sir has published 20 research articles in various international journals and presented keynote lectures and guest lectures in various engineering colleges. Sir has also given guest lectures for engineering fraternity to disseminate his knowledge and uh, to enhance the knowledge of other working engineers. He is a certified ECBC third-party accessor, expert professional by Bureau of Energy Efficiency through Andhra Pradesh State Energy Conservation Mission and State Energy Conservation Code. Sir is also a certified auditor for water expert professional by Water Audit Council as a esteemed initiative by the Indian Plumbing Association. Welcome you, sir, for this online AICTE training and learning ATAL Faculty Development Program on Disaster Mitigation and Resilience, a framework for future infrastructure. Actually, we have scheduled a session on Saturday, but due to the shuffling of resource persons, we requested sir to give his lecture on day two itself. Sir has readily accepted our invitation, and we really thank Sunil sir for being with us. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. Is my voice is audible? It is clear?
Yes, sir, it's audible, sir. I will stop
Right,
my screen sharing, then you can continue, sir.
right. Please, I'll share my screen. Hope my screen is visible.
Yes, sir. Screen is visible.
Right, right. Okay. Thank you, Sriram, for the nice bio of me. So thank you so much. I think thank you for Sri Chaitanya College of Engineering. Maybe this is the right time. This disaster mitigation and resilience framework for the future infrastructure. Like I really thank the organizing team and the college who have taken this kind of FTP on disaster mitigation. This is definitely needed. And when I was today presenting, then I got a call from Sriram. Today is my talk and all. Maybe I think it is the right time. Right now, we are in a situation of cyclone effect in Visakhapatnam and in the state of Andhra Pradesh, some areas in the coastal region. I think there is a need for the mitigation need to be taken place in the post-disaster phase. I think financing the resilient infrastructure is very important in the post-disaster phase. I think it will play a very crucial role in the to upstand the infrastructure community and make the things flow like roads, other things like power, everything. So before I go into my presentation, so I think the flow of my presentation, like introduction, infrastructure resilience, dimensions of infrastructure resilience, resilient infrastructure like based on asset and services resilience, and infrastructure for resilience on social, economic, and systemic and financial resilience, and so on, and climate change, and so on, and final conclusions. So, what is financing the resilient infrastructure? what it really means. Whether I think in the post-disaster phase, we will see a lot of things need to be withstand and like adapt to the changes. Then I think it should be very normal. Like I think we need a support from the governments as well as the private funding agencies to fund for rebuilding the infrastructure of the communities. That is very important. I think coming to the financial financing the resilient infrastructure is very crucial for disaster mitigation and future proofing essential assets and all. I think assets need to be protected. So I think there is a kind of proper strategies need to be taken in building the strong kind of infrastructure in the pre-disaster phases and all. And in the post-disaster, it should be adequately important to withstand and make the things normal. So effective strategies need to be taken while combining the creation for enabling the policy environments and innovative risk based on the financial tools need to be checked. Then there is a kind of concert efforts from the public and private sectors to unlock the investments to accelerate the project deliveries also. I think there is a lot of strategies the governments are taking. So in terms of predicting the disaster and what will be the post-disaster effect, what is the kind of area that is affected in the disaster, what will be the funding that is required, that should be done in the pre-disaster phase and all. So it will help the people to plan before, and after disaster it should be reconstruction becomes very easy. So if you come to the funding and financial phases of the infrastructure life cycles and all, so it's a proper current and prospective infrastructure owners need to be taken initiative like government. So government should act very significantly to mitigate the disaster, and the private developers are also help to fund for the rebuilding of the structure in terms of capital investment they can make and necessary to pay for their development capital and operational cost. Nowadays, if you think development without any kind of proper development, the economy cannot uh, cope up to the expectations of the communities. And the operational cost is becoming very, very high in most of the kind of mitigation disaster affected areas and all. I think they need to be rectified and need to be focused on improving and getting more kind of investments onto the disaster. If you come to the trend in the from 1970, the global fixed capital formations like from 1970, if you take the investment is around billions actually. Then in coming to 2020, it is coming into trillions. I think there is a massive investment flow in infrastructure from 1970 that has been unpinned for the total urbanization. And with more than 90% of the modern day infrastructure was built in 50 days. So this is really, we need to look into the total infrastructure, right? Building the infrastructure in the last 50 years is very crucial. So definitely people like us has to safeguard that in a proper way in order to take a proper measures in the post-disaster phase. And if you come to the net value of the world's capital formation, so there is a drastic increase in the investment like around 742 billion in 1970, and it is going up to 25 trillion today right now. So I think how much of the investment was pumped up in the infrastructure projects after the post disaster phase, we really has to think on that. And if you come to the project, it includes the construction of new climate resilient asset. I think the structures which are got affected during the disaster need to be adopted with a proper retrofitting kind of techniques of an existing infrastructure. And we need to address the problem of climate risks. Actually, the climate is one of the major challenge right now. So if you take a lot of countries are fighting for climate change, I think we need to think because the world is also moving towards the climate reduction strategies because the temperatures are going very high. and the inadequate climate effects are also is becoming very, very high. So while there is another kind of point need to be taken into consideration in terms of infrastructure life cycle, that is nothing but the development capital and operational cost need to be raised significantly, and lot of reserves need to be saved before from the taxation or something like that, and proper planning and coordination need to be also efforts need to be funded for financing and occurrence of the disasters and all. So if you take the most of the cases, the infrastructure development like financing can also be practically considered in terms of initial capital, and it should be delivered to the infrastructure projects. And while the funding are also can be compromised by regular expenses that should be paid over the operational life cycle of the project. Means I think you need if you want to really make some kind of fund need to be arranged uh, during the disasters and all, the reserves has to be planned before itself, and this will help the people to fund easily, and the government will also have a smooth kind of fund transfer during the operational phase. I think if you come to the infrastructure resilience, like resilient infrastructure and infrastructure for resilience, both are different actually. So when you come into the resilient infrastructure, you have asset resilience and you have service resilience. So I think both need to help in order to build the resilient infrastructure. We'll talk about that in the next coming slides. And what is coming to the infrastructure for resilience, like it depends on the social and economic resilience and systemic resilience also. It is also helping the people to understand the needs of the disasters and all. Then infrastructure governance is also playing a very significant role in the asset building and in the service provider. And if you come to the physical resilience also, it is also helping both social and economic resilience. So coming to the resilient infrastructure, the resilient infrastructure resilience can be understood as both resilient infrastructure and infrastructure for resilience. So resilient infrastructure refers to the infrastructure that can be observed, rebounded, and adapted to the hazardous events and the shocks. Okay, so I think what is an hazard events is nothing but the disasters, which is by different forms, by natural and man-made disasters. So this kind of disasters are playing a very crucial role, and earthquakes are also becoming very high nowadays in most of the countries and all. I think this need to be really think to overcome what kind of measures to be taken in terms of making a strong infrastructure, whether any kind of disaster which is occurs in any kind of form, actually. So infrastructure for resilience is also, in other hand, if you think, it is also supporting the social and the economic strategies and the systemic resilience. And this kind of infrastructure can also be taken into considerations for both the saving the economic liability of the communities and safeguarding the local infrastructures also in proper ways. So if you take both, they are underpinned by the core enablers, such as the governance has to be made properly while building the infrastructure, and physical resilience are also taking place into the infrastructure. If you come to the LMICs, means it is a low medium income countries. They accounted for around 32% of the exposed value due to the asset resilience. And if you come to the asset resilience, like 54% factor of risk is also there in the maintaining the proper infrastructure with an adequate facility. So if you take, for example, disaster and climate risk, it is also playing a very crucial role in the low medium income countries, which is rarely considered as systematic in terms of conceptualization, planning, risk regulations, and management of infrastructure systems. So I think a lot of countries are taking in terms of very seriously in building the strong infrastructure in terms of any kind of problem will not come during any kind of effect of disaster. I think there is a strong policy need is made with a lot of countries based upon the zoning patterns and all actually. So if you come to the earthquake zones and all, I think they are taking a proper kind of measures in building the proper infrastructure in terms of strong foundations and strong kind of materials which can withstand and which not affect the life cycle of the structure also. And if you come to the many industrial investments are made on the hazard exposed areas, internalizing the accumulation of high level disasters and climate risk. I think the high level disasters are playing an alert from the different perspectives in order to meet the increasing the asset loss and damage, and also the service disruptions are also made in order to minimize the disaster. I think mitigation need to be adopted very seriously in the post disaster phase. Immediately, what are the basic things need to be used for the disaster? The accumulation of this risk is also an infrastructure asset which reflects to the socially constructed drivers such as weak infrastructure governance. I think if the governance is not proper, definitely it will affect the structure's health, and the residual life is also minimized. And this is a badly planned manner in which the urban development authorities need to take an exposure on the environmental degradation and the climate change. So this plays a very significant confirmations on the patterns of disaster exposed areas and proper vulnerability effect due to disasters. And this is a hazard which is affecting the total infrastructure with a risk also involved in it. And if you come to the service and supply chain resilience, then infrastructure assets need to be provided with proper services like water, sanitation, energy, because these are some of the kind of basic needs that is required in the post-disaster phase immediately. It should be an act from the government or different private funding agencies to help, or NGOs also can help to the households or the business and communities in order to take without power, water, and sanitation and transportation. I think there is a no recovery asset can be made properly with the post disaster. So if you take, for example, the service resilience, it is also referring to the capacity to buffer the asset losses and damage the way in which they continue the service provisions and all. I think buffer losses are also common, like a road. I think the road is affected during the disaster. I think it should be immediately need to be enhanced with installation, and if you take communication systems or electrical systems or energy or electricity, all this water, everything need to be taken care, because in the post-disaster phase, these are the basic things. Without this, I think there is no movement of the communities also. And the continued service provisions like rapid recoveries are also can be made. And whether it is we always has to think on safe to we have to think on very safe without any kind of failure in installing the basic infrastructure assets. And it is important that the asset themselves need to be protected. So if you come to the annual energy, if you come to the average annual losses around across the infrastructure sectors and all, it is lying a very important role in between 301 to 330 US billions, and it is a real cost that is disrupted services due to the high around nearly 700 billion per year. And it is along with its unqualified impacts can also can be made in terms of well-being, health, and productivity and competitiveness. So annual average loss is becoming very high because of more effect on disaster, and it could meet in future around 700 billion per year. It should be needed. It should be taken very seriously because the impacts are more on the well-being and health and productivity of the people and all. So if you come to the graph, this represents the median capacity loss due to the significant due to the significant impact on hazard across the sectors and income classes. If you take, for example, four classes we have divided, and if you take, for example, the drinking water, wastewater, electricity, and road, these are the basic things need to be installed in the post disaster. If you take, for example, this is the global scenario which I was giving you. So low income, low middle income, upper middle income, then higher income. If you take, for example, the drinking water supply for low income group is having a higher significance and comparatively to high income people and all. So I think this need to be definitely taken as a serious issue. And if you take, for example, in wastewater also, I think there is a higher impact of the people in terms of low income people, in terms of wastewater also, comparatively to other kind of upper and lower middle income groups. And if you come to the electricity recovery in terms of capacity, then high income group people are having very significant chances of improving the things and all, because they'll be using a lot of inverters and other things. And if you come to the roads and also, so I think the sectors also, based on the sectors also, I think the road improvements can be made. So I think this is also the impact of roads on the higher income group people is also very equal to middle income group people. So if you come to the infrastructure governance, the sound infrastructure governance is also a core enabler for infrastructure resilience, and it can be broadly be defined as based on the capacity of proper planning, then financing, design, implement, manage, and operate and maintain the infrastructure systems. And this infrastructure systems can be governed by deficit planning, design, inadequate standards can also be met, and inadequate systems for regulation and compliance also should be made. The lower level of investments can be made in terms of operation and maintenance, and it's a barrier for resilience actually. So aggravating the infrastructure deficit and reducing the infrastructure quality need to be taken very seriously in terms of infrastructure governance. I think this is one of the crucial term in infrastructure governance. And if you come to the pattern of particularly in terms of infrastructure resilience, the operation and maintenance is expenditures are often insufficient, because I think due to poor planning, quality in terms of in the post construction phase, then in the construction phase, and proper adequate materials are not chosen. So because of that, operational costs are also increasing and maintenance costs, and premature obsolescence is also made. Obsolescence is something like outdated technologies. If you build the infrastructure, I think we cannot trace out the information properly, and this definitely affects the financial planning, and operational maintenance cost is also increasing, and there is a need to divert the capital expenditure towards rehabilitation and reconstruction actually. So this is something like every kind of community and individual need to plan in the future if any kind of disasters are coming. So if you come to the capital investment, I think the infrastructure assets only accounts to 15 to 30% of overall expenditure over its design life, and while 70 to 85% of infrastructure is attributable to operation and maintenance. So if you take, for example, the different sectors like food and infrastructure, health, then education, then wash, infrastructure, and renewable energy, I think the lot of governments are funding for renewable energy. And this is definitely one of the focus area in terms of net zero. I think around 2% we are like improving the needs for the asset management. Then I think this is also comes under SDG 13. And if you come to the food and the sanitation, the food and agriculture, so I think the zero hunger is also related to SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, that is around 35% is decreased. And if you come to the health, I think health is around 25%, it is decreased. The investments on the health infrastructure like new hospitals has to be made. That is also a deficit in terms of infrastructure development. And if you come to the infrastructure like investments on schools and education, so that should be taken very high priority immediately. And if you come to the clean waste and sanitation, I think this need to be improved. There is a deficit of 9%. There is a provision of water and sanitation to infrastructure and household. And if you come to the infrastructure development like transportation, like proper roads has to be built, proper power generation need to be improved, and the distribution of energies in terms of renewable or telecommunication systems need to be improved. This is also comes under SDG 7, 9, and 9 and 11. So I think sustainable cities are also need to be taken care. Whereas I told you, renewable energy also is impacting based on the climate change and all. So I think there is a no more of the operational cost is pumped up in the energy sector also. And if we come to the patch up of assets with provisional repairs can be made to reduce the resilience effect on the disaster and contributing to increasingly frequent service in, disruptions also, interruptions are also. And if you come to the social and economic resilience, I think a lot of funding is made in terms of the total capital stock per capita. So I think if you come to this blue, it represents nothing but a high income. I think it is around the funding is made around USD around 2 lakhs dollars. And if you come to the green color represents nothing but upper middle income group people around USD 37,000 dollars. And if you come to the violet, it comes under low middle income group. It is around countries, it is around $8,000. And if you come to the investment that is made on a low income group countries around 3,000 USD dollars. I think this need to be significantly improved. Okay. So if you come to the mass investments in infrastructure over last 50 years, if you're taken, it is not equally distributed. So I think there is a distribution pattern was changed between the different income group countries. This need to be, I think need seriously for building the proper infrastructure for everyone. Maybe it is a low, medium, or heavy. The investments need to be pumped up more for the low income group people, where they can also improve their economy in terms of in a global scale. So if you come to the high income countries and all, the per capita capital stock is around 2 lakhs as comparatively to $37,000 in the upper and the middle income countries. And where comparatively very significantly, it is around 3,000 for low income, medium income countries and all. And it is very significantly low for 3,000 around generally from the graph what we have seen. The public and the private investments in the low income countries have consistently lagged behind the medium and the low income countries. And there is a significant gap is there in terms of investment, in terms of social and economic improvements need to be made for the low income countries, where they significantly increase their global equities also. If you come to the systemic resilience, I think indirect drivers and the direct drivers. If we come to the terrestrial, when we are significantly thinking about the life of terrestrial, freshwater, and marine life. So I think if you see something like the demographic and social culture, it is directly affects the land and the sea use changes and all. In the terrestrial, I think it is little bit low comparatively to freshwater and marine life. This need to be significantly improved because when you go to the coastal regions and all, I think the marine and freshwater life is very important. So it should be significantly think to improve in it. And the economic and technological life, directly exploration need to be made on the terrestrial life. It is very high comparative freshwater and marine. And institutional and governance requirement, like if climate change is one adoption that is made, it is a little bit changing in terms of terrestrial and freshwater life. And there are various conflicts and epidemics on pollution, invasive alien species, and all other things and all. This also need to be think in terms of balancing the environmental life for various terrestrial, freshwater, and marine lives, where I think that definitely need from the community perspectives also. And the biodiversity is completely declining, and this need to be taken care seriously by all the kind of low, medium, and upper level countries and all. So if you take, for examples, the declination in nature. So I think if you come to ecosystem and extant condition, it is around 47%, and there is an effect of natural ecosystem is declined, and average relatively to earliest to estimates to the states and all. And if you take 25%, it is on the species extent risk that is made approximately around 25%. It is already threatening the most of the animals and the plant groups studies and all. So if you take 23%, the economic communities are also adequately affected. The terrestrial communities also in more or less adequate. So if you take 82% of the biomass and the species obsolescence is also made in terms of mammals and other percentages. And if you take 72%, the natural indigenous people and local communities are also affected. Uh, it is a very significant effect in terms of deterioration of elements from the natural importance to them. So if you take physical resilience and all, I think when if you compare between high level countries and the medium and low level countries, there is a significant low income countries are facing a lot of problem in terms of getting the funds for rebuilding the asset management, and the private investor are also coming for more for high income countries rather than the low and the medium income countries. If you take, for example, the physical capacity scale of the public investment to address the infrastructure deficit need to be made, and a sufficient budget need to be allocated to improve the existing infrastructure needs, and also to improve the standards of strengthening the asset and service life to a greater extent. So I think this figure directly denotes that high income countries growing around 8.3% in 2021, and which is fell around 8.88% across low medium income countries and all. So even along with the low income medium countries, the most available capital flow was made in a middle income countries and all. This need to be significantly changed, because there is a significant drop down which is very low in 2021. So if you come to now, it is around 7.3%, which is significantly in 2025. In 2022, the low income countries received only 2% of the global foreign direct investment. I think the direct investments need to be improved to withstand the low income countries also. And the global landscape of infrastructure risk need to be taken. Accessing the disaster and climate risk, the infrastructure allows the governments and other infrastructure owners to identify and estimate the contingency liabilities for responsible to make the sector very strong and territory. The financial risk mitigations can also be used to make economic cases for investing the resilience, and also the appropriate strategies need to be made in every kind of sector in terms of making the fund ready for the future needs and all. So, considering the effect of climate change, if you take a global average annual loss, the principal infrastructure sector is currently stands around between what I've told you before. It is around 301 to 330 billion dollars, representing around 0.16 to 0.18% of the total value of the infrastructure asset which is made. So if you take, for example, the total infrastructure risk, including buildings, health, and education, it is estimated to be around $732 and 845 billion dollars. So I think it is around 1/7 of the global GDP, which I was telling about financial year of 2021 and 22. So I think this need to be taken very seriously, because health and education is one of the major thing in any country to withstand for a longer time and all. So if you come to the risk in income and geographical reasons and all, if you come to the absolute and relative annual average loss for infrastructure sectors, if you can, if you take this kind of countries like high income absolute annual average, so India is there in this, and UK, US, Germany, Japan. So mostly like high who are in the higher top economic list, every country is there. And if you come to the relatively uh, annual average annual, like Peru, North Korea, and other countries are also there. Bhutan is also in that kind of phase. And if you come to the relatively annual average risk income geography, if you take, lot of countries are there in this. Virginia, then Brahmos, different countries are also there. If you take, for example, 67% of the global value of infrastructure asset is concentrated on high income countries. So I think this need to be significantly impact, which other people are not having that income sources because of the population, because of the economic generation of their country and all. So upper and the lower middle countries accounted for only 24.8 and 7% respectively, where low income countries around 0.6% of the total value. So this should be viewed very seriously and improve the needs for the low and upper middle income countries and lower income countries are also. So however, this low medium income countries carrying a high relative risk with a relative average annual loss between 0.31% of 0.31% and 0.41% of the value of the infrastructure, and compared to the 0.14 in high level countries and all. In other words, if you take the countries with largest infrastructure deficit are carried around a high level risk for the people. So if you take the climate change, 30% of total annual average loss is associated with geological hazards and 70% around the climate hazards. So across all the countries, if you take, the relatively annual average is associated with the climate related hazards is higher than the geological hazards and all. If you take in other countries, the climate change has significantly increased from an annual average. So if you take a high level countries and all like US and Japan and India and all, the increasing in the total infrastructure annual loss around 4%, 12%, but it could increase 12 to 22% in a middle income, as well as 33% in a low income countries and all. So this is definitely one of the crucial factor in climate change. So the climate change could significantly modify an annual average loss of a high power generation in a lower countries, and relatively it is primarily speaking on the different sources of need. Okay, so I think if you take the global exposed value, so it is around different sectors which are having a significant loss is power, telecommunication systems, water and wastewater systems, the oil and gas, and ports and airports, and road infrastructure sectors and all. So if you take a global exposed value in terms, and it is around varying in thousands billion US dollars. If you take an annual average loss, it is also varying in terms of hundreds and all. So according to this figure, we significantly notice is that infrastructure risk is concentrated on the morely on the power, roads, and telecommunication sectors, and posing a significant challenge on resilience across the most of the countries. This risk in each country is associated with the specific hazard, and the flood and wind is also example of associated with two-thirds of the power sector of an annual average loss. So if you take the relative risk interlaced with education and health infrastructure is very low, and this is currently around 0.42% of exposed assets, and it should be more three times in an high level income countries and all. So if you come to the down benefits of these resilient based approaches in funding and financing projects and all. So if you take a major kind of phase is design phase, the is nothing but we need a proper funding and financing for the project associated with the scope for the designers to reinstall the work and reconstruct and rehabilitate the project. And the sufficient funding will also can benefit most of the technical assistance in terms of proper design futures and proper design things need to be adopted, and where neglecting the obsolescence of low technology and other kind of needs, and the minimizing the standards for necessary to use an adequate design and analysis to approaches to considered for the design spectrum, and the design phases are also can be restricted for financing and other kind of suitable outcomes for achieving. If you take a procurement, I think adequate funding and financing also helps the investors to adequately give importance for the climate resilient infrastructures, and the sufficient capital can also be made in procurement of qualified professionals in terms of design and construction, and high quality materials can also be equipped with the scope of the climate resilience. And there is a inclusion of co-benefits can be given for the people who are participating in the funding process. So if you come to the construction, I think we always think about the life cycle, and this life cycle plays a very important role in reducing the resilience value, encoding with the construction phases. And qualified contractors and qualified quality control measures can also benefit the people for giving value engineering for decision making. This is also important for reducing the long term performance of the stake, and also the short term physical benefits can also be applied in a significant run. So operation and maintenance, I think every kind of infrastructure requires operational maintenance, but in the post disasters and all, I think the operational cost is definitely increases maybe 15 to 20 times compared to without any kind of disasters. And this physical financing can also provide a sufficient capital for the funding people in order to meet the needs of the climate change, and also reduces the requirements during the operation. The infrastructure is equipped with the meeting the climate shocks and stress its over its experience in reducing the operational expenses, and the infrastructure that is very resilient for more attractive to the investors and funders in order to give, because the insurance companies are also hesitate to give a funding for the post disaster activities and all. So I think this need to be taken a responsibility from the government side in order to measure in order to help the owners and the communities to avail that kind of benefit and all. So end of life, if you take, the infrastructure can also be caused a climate event and an asset which reaches to the end of its useful life. And this mechanism, such as disaster risk financing, provides a support to rapidly infrastructures and maintaining a service life properly to extreme events, or also means extreme disasters, and this helping to prevent the premature closes need to be prevented, like before the life it should not have an effect on the service life of it, and this should be taken care very seriously, and adequate funding should be provided for decommissioning and dismantling of structure, So at the end of its life, maybe this kind of thing can be re-benefited in terms of circular economy, means reusing these materials or recycling these materials. It's a part of sustainability operations right now, and the proper asset management and site management can also benefit the owners or communities to use it properly for the end of the life. If you take the final conclusion of the study is something like the financing the resilient infrastructure is now recognized as a very crucial global priority. So, at achieving the scale and sustainability demands has a bold new approaches in terms of both international and in the national context. So, if you take most of the countries face a very significant problem of investment gap, and it involves a risk from the climate change and the disasters which are occurring, maybe natural or man-made. Particularly if you take the fast-growing countries like India and China and Russia and all other people. So this is very significant investment gap. I think there is a foreign direct investment can be made for these kind of countries to help in order to rebuild the structure and rebuild the economy in a faster scale. So if you come to the global scenario, the annual investments needed for the resilient infrastructure is very low. Medium income countries along is estimated around 2.84 trillion, which is reached up to a net zero by 2025, which is additionally 1 to 2% of GDP is also annually incurred on the risk reduction and adaptive measures, such as mainly on the coastal protection areas and all, because the climate change is very inadequate in terms of cyclone floods and a lot of things. So despite of existence of USD 106 trillion. It is a untrapped private institutional capitals worldwide, and over a tiny fraction is invested directly to infrastructure, mostly to high income countries and renewable energies and all. So indirect investments can also be a capital flow towards the climate resilient assets. This is need to be safeguarded in terms of adding means in vulnerable geographies like India and all. So this is one of the crucial factor in terms of the critical challenges that is faced by climate change. So if you come to the international climate financing, so it will helpful. It is not only on the sufficient meet the vast adoption and resilient measures of infrastructure. So, and new kind of financial instruments like green bonds, catastrophic bonds, and blended financing and climate resilient debits can also be changes, and it should be adopted in a more attractive for the private investors to make. And enhancing the involvement of this development banks, such as now I think World Bank is funding for people in terms of meeting their meeting their needs in terms of food and shelter and other things. And the economic pressures are also becoming very high and rising in the debts and inflation is continuously changing in most of the countries. This will have a higher impact in terms of economy, and the continuous increase in the cost and the limited capacity can also be affect in terms of instrument. So the global effects are mainly focused on integrating the resilience in terms of procurement. Public-private partnerships can also be made to improve the financing and asset management and resilient governance for the people. And risk management also frameworks can also be estimated for mainstreaming the adoption criteria in terms of budgeting and proper design. So there is a clear recognition that resilient financing must be a new kind of area where complementary to but distinctive to conventional climate finance, and which is also targeting for disaster risk reductions in terms of rapid recoveries, life cycle adoptions, and other things. If we come to the conclusions in the Indian type of scenario, so what things need to be improved in terms of Indians' vulnerability to natural disasters? Like annual costs, such as the events, need to be estimated around $9.8 billion, and emphasizing an urgency the need for a resilient infrastructures and all. So this is a very big gap need to be improved. The to sustain the economic growth and urbanization, the India need around 4.5 trillions in a new infrastructure investments by 2040, and it affects the major funding gap by maybe from the government or a public investors and all. The government plays a very central role, yet the public resources alone inadequate to meet the requirements. So that is always there. There is a deficit of funds in the government in order to fund for the disasters and all. So innovative solutions like national investment infrastructure funding can be made for the disasters, and infrastructure investment trusts and real estate investment trusts and other kind of rapid growth green bonds can also be attracted to equity investments and helping the people closely with the gap. So public-private partnerships have shown a successful with examples like Hyderabad Metro. Then, if you take a blended finance, is also increasingly adopted to reduce the risk and simulate the private investments. If you take the government sectors like Indian government, Indian National Disaster Management Plan, is also playing a very crucial role in channelizing the funds from the state disaster mitigation funds and pooling them and all. Like if you take, for example, Indore and Tamil Nadu, they have done a significant municipalities they had done and brought the funds and pulled in order to recover the communities very fastly. So despite of the progress, the challenges which include the high frontier cost, perceived risk and regulatory hurdles can also be decreased and limited expertise people are there is a proper gap is there in terms of requirement for scaling the bond issues, insurance bonds, the carbon credits, pooling the mechanism along with the sides of the governance and transparency and the risk assessment. If we take on the global scale, the financial resilient infrastructure requires a more challenging sustainable development activities, and mobilizing the private capital is very important and need because the government cannot fund every time because I think there is a funds need to be reserved for the future development. There is a kind of private capital funds can be having a major kind of reform like public financing can be made easily, and creating a new instruments like risk sharing on the top priorities and all. If you take India is advancing towards the mixed policy reforms, financial innovations, then PPP, increasing the engagement with the international partners, engaging with them, and yet the future actions can be also required to take adoptions to the plan and significant change in the climate risk. So if you take both the kind of global and Indian scenarios, both the parts must be prioritized to integrate the strategies. I think global strategies need to be taken into considerations to blend and reduce the risk reductions and risk mitigations, and which is inclusive of funding models and the long-term resilient divisions for all the stakeholders and all. This is a kind of benefit where financial risk infrastructure can be improved. So thank you. So that's it from my presentation. Maybe this is more talking on the financial asset management in terms of public and private. So how the funding can be made and reserved for the future needs and all. Thank you. This is my contact details. If you require any kind of support from my side in terms of research and all, I can easily do it. Yeah. So that's it. I think, Sridham sir, it is done.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So thank you, sir. You have given a detailed presentation.
Yeah. Thank you.
But
So
the
it's
thing is, after the introductory sessions, if this topic has come, then that is a might beneficial one for all the participants. But due to rescheduling, the
right, right,
post
right, right.
recovery of how the structures are to be recovered, like how the finance is involved. So this is the for the post recovery period, sir.
Correct, correct, correct. Actually, this is a more not technical. It is more generalized topic. So that is the thing I think. it's yeah. Thank you.
But you have covered the information very nicely, sir, in the global scenario as well as for the local scenario also.
Yeah, correct. So I think fund management, fund things are playing a very crucial role in the post-disaster phase. I think it should be come up not only the government. I think the private funding agencies or other countries can also fund for this kind of rebuilding the asset. Actually,
Yes, sir. Sir, only one thing I would like to ask from the participant side. Yesterday also I asked
please, please.
Professor KV Jayakumar, sir, but however, you are staying in Vizag itself and now you are experiencing the cyclone effect. So,
Motha.
yeah, Motha, and here lot of warnings are given, like a lot of preventive measures are taken by the government.
Right, right, right. They are setting the control rooms for the
Yes.
people to
So
safeguard.
can
Okay.
you brief that from your side, sir?
Right,
How,
right, right.
like
100%.
even if you see the Vizag has experienced many cyclones as it is in the coastal
Right,
region.
right, right. 100%. Actually,
So
we have seen some kind of disaster called Hudud in 2014, same in October. Now,
yes,
after 11 years, we are seeing one of the significant effect of Mota, but not significantly right now. So I think we are having a continuous rain from last 2 to 3 days. Tomorrow also there is a kind of red alert which is given from the government such that to stay indoor and on. I think there is a only the damage is something like on the trees are fallen on the roads actually. So I think that is the only thing, but there is no kind of proper damage for the asset like buildings or infrastructure or something like that right now. But in Hudud and all, I think a lot of infrastructure damage was happened because of we have seen almost a wind force of I think 220 kilometers per hour. Significantly, it was affected Vishakhapatnam. Lot of damage is there. I think the government is told the damage is around 10,000 crores actually. So it is a very huge kind of investment need to be pumped, but the central government is funded that time in Hudud is around 1,000 crores, but that is not sufficient for the people to reinstall the things. The lot of greenery has been damaged. I think a lot of things has been taken place. We are not significantly seeing the electricity after the Hudud cyclone for nearly 10 days. I think lot of low-lying areas people have faced without any kind of basic needs, the water, food. They have faced a lot of problem. So I think private communities like NGOs, they came forward and helped the people. So I think definitely financing plays a very important role. Any country want to survival for the future benefit, definitely they has to think on preserving the funds. It's not from the government side, it is from the individual side and from the other countries that also can fund for this kind of disasters and all. Yeah. So that's it.
yes,
Thank you. Hope I think I have explained little bit around the what kind of disasters financing is required. Yeah.
yes, sir.
Right. Any questions are there? We can take up. Otherwise, yeah.
So I don't find any questions from
Yeah.
the participant side.
Right.
Maybe you can stop our session here, sir. So
Right. 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 Right.
thank you, Sunil sir, for giving
Thank
a
you.
nice lecture on financing resilient infrastructure.
Thank you.
So with this, day two session is ended. We will meet once again tomorrow at 6 p.m. with the two sessions. First session will be at 6 p.m. to 7:30, and the 7:30 to 9 p.m. will be the second session. I will share the details of the the speaker as well as the topic in our WhatsApp group. So with this, we will close our day two. I really thank the session one speaker, Dr. Vijay Suryamchiji, Assistant Professor of Sri Chaitanya College of Engineering, and second speaker, Dr. Nandipati Sunil sir, Assistant Professor from Geetam University, as well as he is also a consultant engineer. So we can consider Sunil sir as an academician as well as a consultant. He has given both the speakers has given enlightened us in the area of disaster mitigation and resilience. So in the coming days, we will once again learn in detail about this topic. Thank you one and all. And those who have already filled the Google form that I have already shared, no need to fill once again. If you didn't fill it, please fill it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. I can leave now, sir.
Yes, sir. We will leave. Sir. I will end. I will
Thank you.
close the session, sir.
Right, right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, sir. So good night, everyone.